It's time for Supply Chain Now Radio, broadcasting live from the supply chain capital of the country, Atlanta, Georgia. Supply Chain Now Radio spotlights the best in all things supply chain. The people, the technologies, the best practices, and the critical issues of the day. And now, here are your hosts.
All right, good afternoon. Welcome back to Supply Chain Now Radio. Scott Luton here with you live. Welcome to the show. So we're coming to you today as we wrap up our coverage of the AIAG SCAC Supply Chain and Quality Conference in North Charleston, South Carolina. This conference has been dedicated to the world of automotive, and we have really enjoyed meeting and interviewing many of the leading industry thought leaders that have been participating. So we should say a big thanks to our conference broadcast sponsor, the Effective Syndicate, for making our coverage possible. In case you didn't know, the Effective Syndicate helps companies win by optimizing process and developing winning cultures. You can learn more at theeffectivesyndicate.com. Quick programming note, like all of our series on Supply Chain Now Radio, you can find our replays on a variety of channels: Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, wherever else you find your podcasts. As always, we'd love to have you subscribe so you don't miss anything. So let's welcome in my co-hosts here today, Greg White, one of our reoccurring co-hosts on Supply Chain Now Radio, a serial supply chain tech entrepreneur and highly trusted advisor. How you doing, Greg?
Now I am doing great.
Yeah, recurring.
Yeah, it's been a lot of
standard serial,
recurring standard serial entrepreneur.
And
trusted advisor.
Pseudo trusted.
You don't trust me, but everyone else does.
Well, kidding aside, we have enjoyed our time here the last 2 days.
It's been a great couple days. Yeah,
great interviews, passionate leaders, folks that are involved in different components of the end-to-end supply chain. And I really enjoyed doing this with you and with Bo Groover, founder and president of the Effective Syndicate, co-host of our popular Leadership Matters series here on Supply Chain Now Radio. Bo, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me again. Good morning.
You bet. Really enjoyed this. I'm not sure. This is probably number 15 we've done through the 2 days.
Good afternoon.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking at their watches
very
like, man,
close.
I missed it.
No, that's not what we're looking. We're looking because it's lunchtime.
Oh, so that's true.
Well, we've got a great appetizer before we move into lunch. We've got one great episode here coming up. And let's welcome our featured guest, Court Harvath, Senior Director. Court, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
So, Court, you serve as Senior Director, Product Development with Ryder System Incorporated, and you're also one of the presenters here at this popular conference this week.
I am.
And we're going to dive into some of the things probably you shared with the audience here, and we're going to get your take on a couple other things throughout the session here. But for starters, before we kind of talk about some of your business and industry insights and what your organization does, let's talk about you and your background and kind of your journey leading to your current role.
Sure. So I've been with Ryder now for close to 15 years, 20 years overall in the industry, predominantly all in automotive. The last 2 years, and I'll go into that in a minute, was spent basically on what I was speaking about today, which was digital transformation and digital technology. But ran the gamut. Started as a cross-dock representative way back in the day. Was going in with the plan to do spreadsheets and analytical work, and then quickly found out that the dock workers tended to take a lot of time off. So got my forklift license and then learned how to drive a forklift very quickly in the process.
Smart.
But it was a great experience. It gave me an opportunity to see how they operate and process flows, et cetera. From there, and that was with a previous company, but jumped into Ryder in 2005 and jumped in network design. So I had first experience of being what they called a logistics engineer. Did not have a logistics engineering or an engineering background per se, so the actual engineers were distraught by me calling myself a logistics engineer. But performing network design, modeling software, just making sure that we had good flows for OEMs. Transitioned into that operations, did some stint working with some financial applications, and then had a really good opportunity to lead one of our largest OEM automotive customers for roughly 3 years. And that was kind of the biggest opportunity for me to really run the gamut from end-to-end supply chain. We had team members that were in site at specific locations. We had drivers that we were managing, network design engineers trying to save money. So had an opportunity to see the overall fiscal responsibility and the operations for that group. prior to, I actually just took on a new role about a month ago.
Congratulations.
So, thank you very much. But before that, it's all been related to digitalization of new products that Ryder's putting out on the market. So I was a product owner. So as we've been transitioning through a digital transformation, we established an agile culture for establishing new products that are coming out that are all going to be customer facing. So a lot of what I discussed today related to the customer intimacy. Historically, a lot of supply chain companies are building efficient technology for themselves that are going to ultimately potentially save money for the customer, but never really a customer facing solution. And when we went back and actually looked at what the digital transformation meant to us, we knew that we had to get the customer involved. As opposed to assuming what they wanted, we had to figure out and actually go out and talk to them. So did a lot of discussions, a lot of travel, just to understand what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. It was actually a completely different scale for me. Usually getting, some tough love from the customers when you're not performing up to the expectations, and now actually being able to go out to other people's customers on other aspects of our business and ask them what we were doing wrong so I can improve it for them. So felt pretty good to do that.
Face-to-face conversation.
Absolutely.
Well,
you got it.
Y'all didn't rely on email.
Exactly.
Love it.
It's good to be heard,
It
right?
is,
I mean,
yeah.
I think that's probably why you got some love while you were out there.
For sure.
Right?
Yep. But the cool thing was be able to take that feedback and actually then build it into the product. So the whole intention was get that voice to the customer, and then at the same time work with the developers to establish what was most important for the customers at the time. So did that for 2 years, and that successfully launched at the end of last year. So we do have customers that are up and running. That is called Ryder Share. And it's an excellent visibility end-to-end solution. We're calling it collaborative logistics, and we can talk about that maybe a little bit later on. But did that for, like I said, 2 years, and it was just a great opportunity to get into the IT world, but not necessarily get involved with development. I'm not an IT guy by trade by any means, but have always had a pretty strong connection with being able to speak with customers and get the most out of them.
Sure. Which are important skill sets to have
Absolutely.
in this day and age where change is just so rapid. All right, so let's talk more. And you've touched on it and shared some of the things, but for those that, for all three people that have not heard of Ryder, tell us about the organization.
Absolutely. So Ryder is a Fortune 500 company. We deal in really three main areas. Our largest is fleet management services. So a lot of lease customers where they are leasing our equipment, and we perform full maintenance for those assets, whether those tractors or trailers. That's all the way across the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. A big portion of that really is making sure that as we migrate from just simple maintenance and ensuring that we have proper uptime for all of our assets and equipment, but also trying to see if we can extend our services, begin to get maybe our drivers into those trucks. So we do a total cost of ownership to say, is it better to have your drivers in our operation versus our drivers? So that's a big chunk of it. The other aspect is supply chain solutions, and that kind of runs the gamut of logistics design, getting inside the four walls of a warehouse and actually managing those, whether our warehouses or our customers' warehouses where we have employees that are inside. And then the third piece is really the dedicated transportation, where it is our drivers, our tractors, our trailers, and then we're running the full service operation for them. So that's predominantly been, the three main pillars that we've gone after forever. FMS by far has been the largest. Ryder's one of the largest companies in the U.S. as it relates to leasing and renting equipment for customers. So that alone, I think, it has shaped the foundation for Ryder. And as we now progress into the 21st, 22nd century, we have to enhance all of that with the technology. So that's where, as we continue to talk through this, that's where we're going to be focusing a lot of our attention, knowing that we need to be able to get a good return on investment for our investors through all three areas.
And in your new role that
Yes.
you've been in now for a month, what else would you add that where do you spend your time?
So because of the month, been doing a lot of travel, have customers all across the U.S., predominantly still all automotive, so a couple of large OEMs. It's dedicated transportation, so for the first time I'm actually leading a team that is asset management, drivers, operators, control towers that are all making sure that we know exactly where our trucks are they on time, And in the automotive industry, compared to retail, consumer, packaged goods, you name it, it's all just in time. I mean, it's immediate. And if there's issues, if there's exceptions that need to take place, the customer needs to know about those immediately. So that didn't change from my previous position to this new dedicated role. It's just in a different capacity because I would be the forefront for any issues that would come up. So it's been a pretty cool experience to be able to go out and meet some of the drivers, the operators, and understand a different set of KPIs that are now being established for those customers as a result of that new piece of business. That, still getting my feet wet, drinking from a fire hose
I bet.
at this point in time, but really enjoying it.
So you're one of the presenters here this week. So obviously that's one of the things that brought you here.
Absolutely.
To the Supply Chain and Quality Conference. But what else? When you come out to these events, what do you look for? And then maybe as a if that's 1A, 1B, what are some of your key takeaways as you get back on the plane?
Yeah. So unfortunately, the logistics of logistics got me because I didn't get a chance to come in until very late last night, so I didn't get an opportunity to participate yesterday. Today, I was actually really interested in the conversation with Meg from Bosch because she was talking about Industry 4.0, and a lot of things that she touched on really resonated with where we're heading as well. A little different as far as the industries are concerned, but she was talking about the digital transformation, where they're heading, and that was kind of a big takeaway that I wanted to get out of it. And I did have quite a few conversations post my presentation, just asking individuals where they think they were in that digital transformation era. Some are on the lower spectrum. Some of them have basically established the new products and feel as though they understand their customers. But I think everybody's kind of on this spectrum from haven't really started yet, really need to get going, versus think we really do have a good handle. But the Uber effects, the Amazon effects, they're hitting everybody, regardless of industry, and they're definitely hitting us, considering that the likes of Amazon right now is getting into commercial trucking, and I think that scares a lot of large-scale commercial trucking companies, right? Even Ryder.
Yeah. Whether you like it or not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, right before your session this morning, did you have a chance to hear Bridget Matheson talk?
I did not.
Oh, boy. So, we had her on the show yesterday, and she was talking all about trade, and she's a trade policy SME. And you talk about an exciting time, and exciting is probably not the right word to use.
I think she said anxious, to put it kindly. Yeah, anxious was apprehensive.
Active, lots of action taking place. But so digital supply chain, digitization, a lot of insights you were sharing.
Yep.
And what I liked about how they constructed this conference, so you heard a little bit it's on this show through all the interviews, and of course the speaker lineup. You heard from a lot of different aspects of the end-to-end supply chain. That's one of my key takeaways. I love when conferences don't stay to the cliche topics, but they're talking the breadth, and that's something I've really enjoyed and we'll take back with us.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah. So, as you're looking at it, and you guys have got your hands in a whole lot of aspects of the supply chain and trucking, what are some of the trends that you're watching or aware of, or maybe even worried about?
I would say prior to this previous role, I mean, it was the rapid advancement in technology. Silicon Valley's taking over. They really are. Whether it's autonomous vehicles, new technology they can put into the supply chain. They're instantly wanting to be bought out, so you have to find the right partners very quickly before potentially one of your competitors does.
Pays $1 billion for them, and you can't afford them, right?
You got it. Yeah. But I mean, there's some really cool technology, whether it's sensor technology, understanding where a truck is on the road at any given point in time, getting closer to stronger electrification for commercial trucks, which is huge, considering diesel prices go up, go down every day. So I know that our execs have consistently been looking at who are the top Silicon Valley intelligence technology companies that are coming out to see if we can get an upper hand on the competitive edge overall. Yeah. From our perspective now, and we're still dealing with the driver shortage, a capacity constraint that we're working through. A lot of what we're doing, because we are such a large lease and rental management organization, we buy a lot of trucks on a consistent basis. So what we're buying now is more conducive to a stronger driver experience inside the cab. There are still drivers that enjoy the stick shift But we are getting to a point to try to bring in more than just your standard, I would say, cliche truck driver that comes out, getting individuals that are coming right out of high school, getting women in the trucks more often, and by doing that, actually changing the style of the cab to allow it easier for them to actually get in the cab, to help support the cab itself, to make it more conducive for a female.
Yeah. So, Court, we gotta. I want to interject for a second here, because this is National Truck Drivers Appreciation Week.
Absolutely.
And I think, and going back, I'm doing a quick inventory of all the 2,000 episodes we've had, but that's one of the first times that folks have specifically and deliberately mentioned some of the things they're doing to get women, make it easier to get women into the truck driving force.
It's one of the first times we've heard anybody really talk about accommodating the driver in any
driver
measure.
experience.
Right.
Exactly.
Point. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah.
The experience to us at this stage of the game is it's not just in cab any longer, and with the new tractors that we're bringing in are just fantastic. I mean, refrigerators, air conditioners, especially for the sleeper cabs and whatnot. But
they're an RV that hauls a 53-foot trailer. Right?
Absolutely, they are.
They are.
But the safety aspect of them are huge as well. And some of the drivers, they're taking a liking to it because it does help with their safety awards.
Yeah.
We have truck drivers of the year, 1,000,000 miles, without any accidents, any collisions, any avoidables, etc. But the technology that we're putting into those assets now is just extensive, where they can get real-time sensing of whether or not they should be slowing down, they should be speeding up. But then the experience itself, there's a lot of regulations that have changed for electronic logging that's taking place. So how do you make that as easy as possible for them to track their hours of service, knowing that occasionally they're going to get pulled over for absolutely no reason?
Right.
How do they make that as simple as possible for that process to take place so they can get back on the road? So we have digital technology now that's in those cabs that are helping support that. It's called Ryder Drive, and it gives them turn-by-turn directions. It gives them where some of the locations are. It gives them, once they get to an actual destination, they can have notes as to this is the place that you pull into. It might be a little bit tight, so drivers can interact with each other on that. So it's pretty cool stuff. That just something else that helps drive the overall experience.
Right.
But the biggest thing for us is incorporating the network design piece into it. We have to create driver-friendly network. They love to get home as often as possible, and if they can't do that on a consistent basis, drivers have a tendency to jump ship very quickly for more money. If they're not going to be home, then I want more money.
Right. And like all of us in this economy where we're getting squeezed in so many different ways, I think beyond comp and beyond comfort and beyond advancement opportunities, it's tough to maintain your workforce.
Absolutely.
But I love to hear the amount of thought and planning and engineering you are putting into that, because that's not something we've heard. We've heard a lot of different takes on the truck driver shortage and some of the different related issues. So that's really cool to hear. All right, so we're going to peek around the corner here, aren't we, Greg?
Yeah, I got to ask this. I have a feeling you're going to have some insights. No pressure.
Okay, here we go.
Six. So we've been challenging. Very good. No. We've been challenging people all week to give us some kind of crystal ball predictions. So if you look at 2020 or beyond, pick a window.
Yep.
Tell us something bold you think is going to change or happen.
Oh boy. I thought about this question when you guys had sent it out there, and even asked a couple of people what their thoughts were. And I don't want to just jump back to the cliche of technology. I know that technology is going to move forward, but I think you're going to get to a point where it is going to be 100% collaborative logistics. There will be platforms that will be out there that almost everybody will have, or everybody will expect to have, that they can connect with all of their stakeholders across the board, whether it's the steamship lines, whether it's the ports, whether it's the customs agents, you name it. They will all be in one system. It's such a hodgepodge right now to get either material or the paperwork associated with that from point A to point B. That's just starting right now, but we're still struggling with getting stuff, through the ports, over the borders. And I think that's going to have a dramatic change. And I think that's going to come a little bit from, the efforts that are taking place in Silicon Valley. But I think that there's going to be individuals that are going to be left behind in the process, whether that's third-party logistics providers, trucking companies that can't adapt to that technology.
Yep.
There's already, like I said, there's because of the ELD mandate itself, we're starting to see smaller carriers starting to move out because they just can't afford the technology that is required to hit the hours of service ELD mandates. Now you take that one step further and you jump into some of the technology that would be involved for them to connect into the likes of a Volvo or a General Motors to make sure that we know exactly where your freight's at any given point in time. If they can't provide that, they're going to be out of the network as well, which means it's going to constrain capacity even further. So I see more constraint taking place within the industry, which is good for organizations that are spending a lot of money to make that happen and stay ahead of it. But I think the bolder prediction is I think the Amazons and even the Uber Freights are going to continue with I won't say their prominence in every single time they go into an industry. It seems like they kind of take it over, but I think there is definitely some nerves that are involved with Amazon getting significantly involved in commercial trucking and what they can do to really upset the supply chain. So I'm not sure if those are extremely bold. I'll tell you right now that
I'll take it.
The Lions are not going to win the Super Bowl this year. I'll bold prediction there. But that's about it.
That was a tragic first week, wasn't it? Sorry about that.
But you're right. The constraints, we've heard, as we mentioned a couple times now, Suzanne Dickerson with the South Carolina Council on Competitiveness has talked about how in the state of South Carolina alone by 2040, the need for logistics and transportation is going up 60%, based on growth and some of the continued challenges that you've spoken to already. Yeah, no wonder why the industry is not being disrupted based on the challenge alone of the constraints and capacity and truck driving and really not just keeping truck drivers, but getting new folks into that pipeline and part of that challenge, as we all know, is correcting the perception around not just the truck driving profession, but also the end-to-end supply chain profession.
Exactly.
There's lots of opportunity, and this industry is, as we've heard about it at event after event after event, this industry is competing for the top talent. Unlike, not taking anything away from folks that have come through supply chain in previous decades, but from the technology demand, from the critical thinking, analytics, data management, problem solving, any role you're in supply chain, whether you're driving a truck or you're managing a DC or you're running a production line, the modern needs that it places on a professional and practitioner are creating this competition. We're competing against folks from financial services. We're competing for folks against technology, you name it. But we've got to fix some of the bad perceptions out there, right?
Bad perceptions, and I think some of the laggard type execution. I mean, let's face it, a lot of the technology we're talking about has existed. It just hasn't permeated the physical transportation industry.
Agreed.
Right?
I would actually say, so AIAG has been doing a fantastic job.
And you've been on the board?
Been on the board for 3 years now, but they've connected with multiple colleges across the U.S. The one closest to me is Wayne State University, where they've developed the future automotive experts. And the sole intention is to ensure that we're getting some of the top talent to truly consider the automotive industry as a strong industry to be a part of because of where the technology is heading, because of the dynamicy of how they're producing vehicles now. They are getting into the digital world, so it's not as much throwing out, 1,000 white cars all at the same time just for a fleet order for Hertz any longer.
Right.
I mean, they are getting down directly to
mass customization.
You got it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So they need the type of talent that's coming out of college to do that. So not only are they working directly with them, but they're also changing their courses within college to help support that. So colleges like the University of Michigan are actually doing big data classes, and you can actually get a major in big data now, which is crazy. That never happened back in the day. So I like that. And we're trying to do the same thing. We're trying to build from internally for a certain extent, but we have to make a decision at a certain point whether we have the ability internally to build the talent that we have or just buy the right resources. and prescriptive analytics, descriptive. You got to get away from reporting.
Right.
You need specific type of talent that can understand it and be a true data scientist to be able to understand how you take some of this stuff to the next level.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, you see a lot of companies, they kind of struggle with, as I call it, the tyranny of the or. Are we going to build it ourselves, or are we going to buy something, right? But there are other alternatives you see, and I think you all have sort of a nurturing program where you can identify a company that has potential and invest or give them business early on and help them shape that product. So we work with a group in that's based in Atlanta but is supply chain wide called Point A, and that's what they do. These big companies, they participate to take really difficult problems like you're describing, give them to early stage companies and let them solve the problem, because the truth is you can't disrupt your own industry.
Absolutely.
If you're a leader in your industry, you cannot disrupt it. You will be the disrupted or you will facilitate the disruptor. But you're too embedded at this level of performance to be able to take the risk to look at it from a naive perspective. Right?
Hey, Court, you ready to have some fun?
Sure, let's go.
All right, guys, I want to hear some bold predictions for 2020 from both Bo Groover and from Greg White. So we've been asking all of our featured guests, but I've yet to turn the tables on
Well,
these
why
two
don't you
gentlemen.
let him turn it on?
Okay.
He can ask us.
So, gentlemen, I got a question for you. I mean, what are your bold predictions? I mean, for 2020 and beyond. I mean, I haven't heard it from you guys yet, so I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
6.
Right.
Okay, good answer.
Not so bold. I think Clemson or Alabama will win the college national championship. Go in there. No, I think I don't know if it's 2020, but I think the dynamic landscape, when you consider AI, you consider the data, you consider the autonomous things that are happening, and Amazon appears to be willing and more than capable to just go in any direction. And so, there's so many industries, and consulting is certainly one of them, right? They've got supply chain, continuous improvement experts, probably dozens, if not hundreds
Technology.
of them, if they just decide to do that. So I think every industry right now is just kind of watching and saying, all right, how do I either partner up with them or create some kind of firewall to protect myself against that? And I don't know. I think it doesn't matter what industry you're in. If they decide to come, you either figure out, do you want to sleep with them or do you want to run away and move to another country? Because it's going to happen.
Yeah, so before I give you my bold prediction, let me address that really quickly. So a couple of quick stories. I go around and do speeches at various things. I was at an HVAC concert. HVAC concert, yeah.
It was nice and cool.
It was like a bunch of it was mostly percussion, people banging on air conditioners.
That's hard rock.
Conference. I think it was Hardy, Hardi, in Phoenix, and a room, it's not unlike the room we're in here. A fellow stood up in the back and said, I can't conceive a world where Amazon could do what we do, where they could provide the warranty service that we do, and I could not hold back. I said, you're from a $50 million company, and the precise problem that we have today is that companies can't conceive a world where Amazon could do what you do. If they wanted to do what you do precisely, they would just buy you. Right. You don't think they have enough capital.
It's pocket change.
And I think that companies, that was a year or so ago, but I think companies, they've come to recognize that there are no boundaries for this company, right? At the same time, I think when companies like Ryder, who people do fear as well in various ways, right? And Amazon, I think when companies like that decide to do something, they create an opportunity for a smaller company that they might work with, right? They do create openings because they have to go a direction in the marketplace that inevitably creates a niche that a small company can fill. So my bold prediction, right? This is my brilliant or maybe just standard segue. My regular recurring segue, serial segue. My bold prediction is that as big companies start to dominate various aspects of business, that smaller companies will continue to slide in there. I'm a firm believer in small beats big. you start by solving the problem that Ryder has, by solving it for somebody who lives next door to you with 2 trucks, right? And then that person tells another person, and they've got 6 trucks. And you continue to evolve that product to a level of maturity where somebody with the sophistication of Ryder or Amazon looks at it and goes, could you do that for us? We know it's going to take some extra work on that product, but could you evolve that product to do the work for us? I think we're going to see a lot more of that. A good, precise example is what I'm calling edge logistics, where companies are buying or leasing small fractions of warehouses, in some cases just a few shelves in warehouses, and they are providing space for direct to consumer or retail or even brands direct to the consumer from these small fractional spaces. So there's a company in Atlanta called Stored. Naturally, like every technology company, you have to spell your name wrong, STORD.com. And you have to take out a letter somewhere, right? Because all of the spelled right words
are taken.
Right. But there are companies like that. I think, I can't remember the name, it's Simple something, but there are lots of companies doing that thing. And I think there are those kind of niches created even when a dominant player comes into place. And one of the reasons that niche is created is because people don't want to do business with Amazon. They fear Amazon. Home Depot fears Amazon so much that they won't do business with anyone who's doing business with Amazon. So, I mean, and Home Depot has they have a lot of sway.
They've got
right?
some chops.
They've got some power, right?
Right.
So I think there will always be openings for small companies, and that's, they will evolve. They'll move into a niche that is abandoned because big companies take a particular direction. And, the world will shift. I'm glad we're on camera because I'm using my hands. If you're only listening to this on a podcast, I don't know what to do with my hands.
Those are some bold predictions.
I just make one point on Bezos, though. As we were doing our research for digital transformation, one of the things we kept seeing on a consistent basis was he was almost the founder of the transition for the digital landscape, but he was the one that made the connection between digital and customer centricity. So he wanted to obsess about the customer. And the transition from books to where it is today was all about just his, going out and talking to the customers and saying, can you do more? And he said, why not? Let's go.
Right.
And now it's all it is about the customer centricity.
Yeah. Well, voice of the customer sounds like a new concept to people, but people have desired that for a long time. Somebody finally did it, finally listened, and employed technology to do so at a rapid pace and with a tremendous amount of efficiency.
Absolutely.
Right?
And $1 trillion later, they're still growing.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna weigh in here as we wrap up and offer some of my bold predictions. Some bold, some not so bold.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah. Hey.
Do you have any bold predictions for 2020?
I do, but I'm not gonna give any rationale behind any of these. So I'm just gonna do a checklist here.
He refuses to be held accountable.
Yes, the power of the microphone.
That's right.
So first off, there's going to be continued pressure on pay rates. We've already seen a lot, with these distribution and fulfillment centers. That's what drives the retail e-commerce era. And we've seen certain components of the end-to-end supply chain, certain traditional sectors try to cling to 1992 or 1987 pay rates, and we wonder why we struggle to attract talent. So there's going to be continued pressure on pay rates, paying folks more of a living wage. We've had folks come on the survey or come on our webinars that have been doing studies on, especially on distribution workforces for years. And in recent years, they've had as many as 35,000 data points, input from these workforces. And almost half of these very valuable members of the supply chain community have worked 2 jobs at times to make ends meet. And it's a travesty that goes on, but it's going to continue to be a lot of pressure on keeping talent, especially talent that makes, even with all the automation that's taking place. We've talked about some of the advantages of having humans solving problems and proactively managing other aspects of supply chain management. So increased pressure on pay rates. Number 2, I think we're going to have a trade breakthrough. as it relates to tariffs. We're going to have a trade deal with China. There's way too much money the world will turn upside down for so many people. There's going to be too much pressure. We're going to have a trade deal. I don't think the USMCA thing's going to pass based on a lot of political forces unless there's a big upheaval. We'll see what takes place in November. Not to get political, but if there is a huge transformation there, then I think the USMCA looks a lot more likely. But I don't think it's going to pass as it stands today. Good news, though, moving from that, and really getting a trade deal would be good for everybody, right?
Right.
The supply chain management, we have one of our co-hosts that likes to talk about how when you hear certain politicians say the word supply chain management, you know that we've really hit mainstream, right? That's cool to see. I mean, supply chain management programs are now found in over 500 campuses and schools throughout the country. I predict for 2020 that's going to continue to proliferate. The demand is too great to deliver and execute on the global business environment that we are in. Number 4. I don't have 6. I got 5. So okay, Court, that's good. I don't want to fall below the court standard there. But number 5 is Georgia is going to be named, while South Carolina is going to maybe be top 10, maybe top 5. Georgia is going to be named the number 1 state to do business in for a record 7 years in a row by Site Selection Magazine. They'll release that coming in November. They just were named the number 1 state to do business in for the 6th year in a row by the other big magazine, which I cannot remember what the name is. Malcolm will help me out.
We'll ask Malcolm. Yeah.
But Site Selection, they've been named 6 years running as the number 1 state to do business in. I will predict that they're going to hit number 7 years in a row, Ric Flair territory, come November.
Woo!
Thank you. And then finally, the Braves, my beloved Braves, are going to win a World Series in 2020. I would love to say...
Wow. I'd love to see that happen.
I'd love to see that happen just in the next 55 days. However, I think next year they're going to have another off season to bolster the team. They've got an incredible core nucleus,
right.
and there's going to be a little bit of pressure on ownership to make a few more investment dollars because they've had a record revenue year at SunTrust Park.
Right.
And we're going to see some acquisitions that puts together the best Braves team we've seen in over a decade. So those are my bold and fearless predictions. Some may come to pass, others may not, but that's what we're seeing.
No love for the Tigers, huh?
No, well, the Detroit. Detroit has won a World Series since the Braves last won in '95. I want to say Detroit. Didn't they win?
No, they went. They lost.
Well,
yeah. We got there though.
So I grew up in Cecil Fielder days when he was hitting home runs on the top of Tiger Stadium, right? I always mix the White Sox and the Tigers because of uniforms. But there were some incredible Detroit Tiger win seasons in the late '80s, early '90s. Yeah. We'll see.
Late '80s.
Of course, a lot of those folks are Hall of Famers now. Whitaker, didn't he play second base?
Whitaker,
and
Lemon.
Trammell played short or third.
Shortstop.
Alan
Alan Trammell.
Mm-hmm.
Shortstop.
Of course, Cecil Fielder, whose son now is hitting a bunch of homers.
Prince.
Prince Fielder. That's right. Okay, man, we're having a factoid session here. But no, we'd love to see the Tigers back in it. I hope they sweep through the American League and just,
Could be 2030. If you want to go 10 years
That's
out.
a bold prediction.
That is a bold
way
prediction.
out there.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, I want to make the court. So how can folks, there's so many cool things that Ryder is up to these days.
Yeah.
How can folks learn more?
Very easy on the website. It's just Ryder.com. So RYDER.com. We're also on social media across the board. So we have a LinkedIn. All you got to do is type in just Ryder System Inc. or Ryder Integrated Logistics or just Ryder. And you'll find us there on LinkedIn. And then we have all of our social media, any driver appreciation, any of our awards that take place, anything that's happening, new products, et cetera, is going to be on Facebook as well. And just simply type in Ryder Systems, and you can get it on Facebook. I can't tell you whether we have a Twitter or not. I'm not a big Twitter guy myself. I don't tweet, but as far as those three, those are the easiest ways to get in contact with us.
Cool. That's
fantastic. And Malcolm says you do have a Twitter at Ryder, RYDER System Inc. is your Twitter profile. So thanks for that timely factoid,
that was
Malcolm.
quick.
Yep.
Okay, And he just shot us a note too. Area Development is the magazine that just named Georgia.
There you go.
The #1 state to do business in here just recently. So you got Area Development, and then you got Site Selection, which we'll announce in a couple months here. Man, he's on it. Okay, thanks again, Court Harvath, Senior Director, Product Development, Ryder System, Inc. Really enjoyed our wrap-up conversation. Our cleanup hitter. We hit a couple out of the park, I think, today.
Great job.
I appreciate it.
Yep.
Safe
absolutely.
travels back.
Thank you very much.
All right, so stick around just for a second here as we wrap up on some of the upcoming events we've got on our calendar. Bo, we've talked about this event in about a week extensively. We're looking forward to our executive roundtable session next Friday in Atlanta. Tell us about it.
Absolutely. So myself and an Emory professor named Robert Kazanjian are going to co-keynote a conversation by invitation only, but if you're interested, please reach out. We're going to be talking about strategy and execution, and if you've got the elements of both of those, you're probably going to have a bright future.
Completely agree.
Can I get an invitation to that, please?
You're standard invited.
Oh,
Wherever I am, Greg, you're invited to be there.
as the standard.
Right.
See, Court, what happens when you lead a podcast is your co-hosts make fun of all the slips you've had over the last
Excellent.
37 days.
I do that on a daily basis with all my teammates, so we're good.
We just do it on the air. That's different. Just thank your lucky stars you're not on the air.
It's documented for posterity.
Yes, that's right.
Oh, boy.
That's right.
All right, so if you're interested to learn more about that event in a week, we're looking forward to that. You can shoot us a note to connect@supplychainnowradio.com, and we'll make sure you get more information. And then October 9th, Greg, what is going on in Atlanta?
Yes, the Georgia Manufacturing Summit, brought to you by our friend Jason Moss and his brother Pete from the Georgia Manufacturing Alliance. So 1,000 attendees. Are we up to 1,000 yet, Alex? 1,000 attendees representing 10,000 Georgia manufacturers. Sharing ideas at the Cobb Galleria.
Yep. Keynotes from Kia, keynotes from P&G. We've got 2 panels going on.
Fantastic panel. More than 2.
Yeah, probably 8.
You guys are only counting your 2, you
Right.
and Bo.
And you're
going
going
to count.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
You're gonna
He's throwing
be
down
able-
the gauntlet on everyone.
So you're going to be able, Greg, to talk about these bold predictions we've made.
Yes.
You're going to be interviewing a couple of foreign trade ministers.
Foreign trade ministers. I predict that based on my behavior, I will be escorted out by their respective secret services. But yes, I will be conducting interviews. Yeah, we'll be live.
That's
from
right.
the show.
October 9th. And one of the last note about that, we talk about this a lot. So Jason Moss, the CEO of the Georgia Manufacturing Alliance, has freed up 50 seats free for our veterans. No strings attached. And we've talked about on this show, we're very passionate about serving the veteran community. We've talked about the challenges that veterans have. I had certainly coming out of the service, coming out of active duty, and connecting and building a network in the private sector, or in their first role in the private sector, building that network that they can generate deals from and gain market intel from, what have you. So events like we're at today and events like this on October 9th are great opportunities to make that happen. So if you're a veteran listening to this podcast, you can go to GeorgiaManufacturingAlliance.com. You can use the promo code USAVET, and you can get a free seat as long as they last. And they may already be gone. This was an offer he kicked off late last week.
We need to get him to update us.
Yeah, we do.
Let's call him
Yeah.
later.
Well, what a great gesture. Kudos to Jason and the GMA for making that happen. And then a couple of upcoming events, of course, you can find on the events tab at supplychainnowradio.com. We're going to be in Austin, Texas at the Logistics
November 7th and 8th.
CIO Forum, hosted by our friends at EFT. We're going to be at the Reverse Logistics Association February 2020 in Vegas. And then I bet we'll see Court and other folks from Ryder at Modex 2020 in March.
You going to be there?
Absolutely. I don't know if I will be. I know that Ryder will be.
Okay.
Absolutely, Ryder will be. Looking forward to rubbing elbows with some of your colleagues
Absolutely.
there. Modex also is hosting our 2020 Atlanta Supply Chain Awards. You can learn more and register for that show for free at modexshow.com. Okay, finally, be sure to our listeners, check out other upcoming events, replays of our interviews, other resources at supplychainnowradio.com. You can find us again on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, all the leading sites where podcasts can be found. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. On behalf of the entire Supply Chain Now Radio team, Scott Luton here, wishing you a wonderful weekend ahead, and we will see you next time on Supply Chain Now Radio. Thanks, everybody.
We out.